Hi, this is Peter Teuscher. I'm here with Toby Dempker. Thanks for joining us for another podcast where we talk about personal, professional, and organizational development and kind of all kinds of related topics, including some philosophy. We pick a topic and see where the conversation takes us. So thank you for joining us for another conversation. I just want to remind everyone, if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and like. And for everyone else, thanks for downloading us from your favorite service, Spotify, YouTube, or where else? Where else do people get us? Apple, or the usual places you get your podcasts from. How you doing today, Toby?
I'm good. I've been. It's been one of these weird. I mean, I guess the last few occasions we've been speaking, it's been sort of summer holidays, and now I feel like I've been through that phase of being really relaxed, and now I'm looking forward to getting into things again and started getting inspired and doing stuff. And it's interesting to see that curve. But now I'm definitely sort of getting back into things. While maybe the rest of Europe are just starting, right? Because August is typically the sort of the holiday season for Southern Europe, right?
Yeah, I mean, August tends to be very quiet, but I mean, the trainings we do and stuff, they are booked fairly far in advance.
Mm.
So it's kind of weird after so many years of so much travel to be home for such extended periods. And you know, I know you do a lot of work in China. I've done some work in North America and in Asia as well. So it's so now it's kind of okay. What are we going to be doing in our own backyard, sort of thing. So, but
Yeah.
it's good. It's good to have time to coach people on one-on-one. I think that's something I'm very passionate about, anyways. So and the not having a hectic travel travel has kind of led us to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
so
Yeah, now here in Sweden, things really kick off sort of mid-August, and it gets really busy with trainings and meetings and stuff like that. So it's things are starting to happening.
yeah,
It's
great.
good.
So
Mm.
I hope everyone listening is also feeling the life get back to normal or some sort of normal, and people are finding success and staying healthy. So with that, let's kick off on our topic today. I've chosen mindset, and as we sort of just talked before we got kicked off here, was was that it's a surprise that we haven't talked about this one before, because mindset's such a huge one for both kind of training and coaching and for all areas of life. So
Mm.
looking forward to kicking off or to really diving deep into this topic today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's when you said that, yeah, for individual development, sure. When we focus on team development, sure, organization development and culture building, that cultural kind of development. Yeah, what kind of mindsets do you want to have in the organization, and what are fruitful? What kind of mindsets are helping you in different kind of situations? I think it's a fascinating topic. So, where should we start?
Well, I think the first person that I think of when I think of mindset is Carol Dweck, because she's
Yeah.
done so much work on that. Obviously, she's got a book called Mindset, and she's done work with both kids and adults, and really focused on the importance of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
Yeah.
So, for anyone listening who doesn't know that, the fixed mindset is sort of this concept that the way I'm born is the way I am. I'm born this way. I have certain talents and skills, and the deficiencies I have, or just kind of can't do anything about them. It's very static, and it feels like this is the way things are, and you just kind of accept them. Whereas the growth mindset is one where it's less about talent and more about what knowledge can I acquire, what skills can I develop. So in children, she really looks at the difference, how kids can really develop far better when they have a growth mindset, where you're basically affirming things like when children do something well, you're affirming that, wow, that must have been you must have put a lot of work into that, rather than, wow,
Mm.
you're so smart or you're so talented, right?
Mm.
So really affirming the things that are going to lead kids to more of a growth mindset. And so in adult life, it's, people will say things like, well, I'm just unlucky, or I'm not good enough, or they'll compare themselves to others and just think that, well, I could never get there. Whereas, people who are really successful are curious, and they'll go, well, what do I have to do to learn that? What
Yeah.
experiences do I need to be able to get better at this? And so that, I mean, that's a really important, part of the mindset piece. It's not the only one, but it's one that's super significant for me.
Mm. Yeah, something that I really enjoy and that I think about a lot for myself, but also especially now with when I'm sort of educating my children, is this not yet piece, right? That I mean, yes, you might get there, or you might not get there, but you're not there yet. So what needs to happen for us to get there, or for you to get there? What else do we have to work on or train on or something? And I think that's really, I mean, it ties in really well with motivations. That yeah, you can get there, or you will get there, if we take a few other steps. And what are you willing to work on? And I guess that when we talk about coaching as well, that really sort of fits into the whole coaching recipe of, okay, so we're not there yet, but what are the other things that we can try or we can do to reach that objective or that goal that we're searching for, or yeah, you're just wanting to pursue.
Yeah, a lot of the barriers that people create for themselves, and the resistance that they have to change is about the mindset, and a lot of that has to do with the paradigm they've created for themselves. So the way they see the world, and the way they see themselves, obviously. So when you start to have this mindset that the world is, you'll have these beliefs that contribute to a certain mindset. Like, you have the negativity bias. I mean, that's one of the most common biases, where you'll remember the Swedish guy's name who passed away just a few years ago, who talked about factfulness, and talked
Yeah,
about how, yeah,
Hans Rosling.
yeah, exactly. I always forget his name, unfortunately. And just recognizing the fact that we're wired to kind of see things, we're wired to see things, the dangers and the fears and so on. It's a survival mechanism, but that negativity bias really skews us to thinking that things are getting worse rather than things are getting better. So I think that's also a mindset. So I think paradigm is another piece when you're looking at mindset that's really important. How do you view the world? From what perspective do you approach things? And so the growth mindset's one of those things. I can continue to learn, I can continue to develop, but also what opportunities are there. I find that people, for example, will get into this victim trap, right? I'm a victim of my circumstances, or the childhood that I had, or any number of circumstances. Whereas people who have this growth mindset will okay, well, that's yesterday, and I'm going to create a new tomorrow for myself, and so having the perspective that you see the world, whether you see that you're a victim of the circumstances, or which is very disempowering, right? I mean, people, I remember back in the 80s and 90s, where in the 80s I was still a bit of a kid, so but I remember this there was a lot of this encouragement to see yourself as you're not, you weren't the problem here, you're the victim, right? And so, and I understand, and I understand that you want to get away from the self-blaming, and making yourself at fault, and certainly that's a risk for people who have been a victim in the past. But the thing is, if you identify yourself as a victim, so you have a victim mindset, the problem is that's not a very empowering position to if you're a victim, what other people are in control of your life. You're not empowered to make the changes that you need to in life. And so the victim mindset is also one that really keeps people stuck. Even though they may have been victimized in the past and they may have struggled, it's not a mindset that you're going to be able to get out of that predicament. And it's
No,
always, it's going to make you reliant on other people always for your own success.
yeah. I mean, for me personally, that's been one of the most helpful helpful tools or mindsets or whatever you want to call it in well yeah in my life, and when I'm dealing with difficult situations and with people that I work with, or with kids, or and even in trainings. And I think I told you about this before in another podcast, but this above and below the line mindset, right? And
Hmm.
what we're talking about, the below the line, is completely this victim, or we call reactive mindset, that things are happening to me. uh, yeah, and also the important thing is that this is a natural state, because I mean, we don't need to get into neurology here, but I mean, if we're the kind of reptile brain is telling us, or protecting us when we get stressed, right?
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
to run away or to fight, and that translates into defending or justifying or fighting against or whatever. And these are all natural behaviors that sort of captures us. And this is the kind of below the line mindset. Um, but what I think is really both problematic and but difficult, but also a very important, I don't know if you can call it skill, but an awareness to work on, is this kind of on and off switch, right? So if we're thinking about a mindset that this is something that I can change, or that I can turn on and off, I mean, can I step into a growth mindset? Can I turn off my fixed mindset, or can I go above the line rather than being below the line? Then it becomes really powerful. And then being above the line, then it's really taking some kind of personal responsibility, going into what we call outcome creative situation, or outcome creative mindset, where things happen because of what we do. So how can I influence the situation? If there's something that I could do, what would that be to make the situation better? And it's a much more powerful, energetic, positive, inspiring place to be, and probably a happier place to be as well. I would imagine, and that's what I feel like. But when I'm speaking about this, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this as well. I notice the difficulty of turning on that switch sometimes. I know I can have the awareness that now I'm in a victim mode, or now in this less powerful state, and I know that I want to go there, but I'm not really willing to yet, because I want to feel angry a bit, a little bit longer, or whatever it is, right? But I guess that awareness, and having the awareness that I can turn on that switch, is the first step, and then hopefully I get there. But it doesn't happen per auto, so to say, right?
No, well, and it's part of our psychology. We from a young age we develop strategies on how do we
Mm,
deal with what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, and so sometimes it can be a strategy to feel sorry for yourself and to to feel like you're the victim. I couldn't help it. It's the world's out to get me or whatever. And that couldn't be a strategy for how to process what's happening to you, right? And
mm,
it's a matter of flipping that switch, and that's part of building resilience, right? So
mm,
in the face of adversity, not following into that mindset, or that thinking trap of because it tends to be a downward spiral. I can never get ahead
mm,
because everything's out to get me, or it's because of whatever conditions, or who I am, or whatever deficiencies I have. I'll never be able to get ahead, and I'm a victim of my circumstances. And when you can, it does take some practice to snap yourself out of that, and to build resilience. Resilience is something that does need practice, right? So it's
mm,
facing adversity, being strong, overcoming it, and finding those successes. And then when you can find that good feeling in the success, and sort of the positive reinforcement through doing that process, then you'll be less reliant on those old strategies of feeling like a victim. And
yeah.
so and I know I've been there. I've been there many
Mm,
times. And when people are feeling depressed, you can. I find it can be coupled with that sense of helplessness and feeling like a victim. that can all be part of the downward spiral that leads to depression. So I think it's something to be very aware of,
Mm.
and recognize when you're in that victim mindset, and finding ways to to just, we've talked about it before, just kind of being with that, the way you're feeling in that moment, just kind of, because we talked about it, I think, in motivation or whatever, when you're feeling resistance and you want to procrastinate, just kind of being with that feeling
Mm.
until it passes. And the same sort of thing when you're feeling that discomfort, we tend to be reactionary, and we jump into that, what's going to make me feel better, or what's going to get rid of this really bad feeling.
Yeah.
And not that feeling like a victim is going to make you feel better, but it's going to, it's kind of, I think it's a strategy. It can be a strategy for not feeling like you're so worthless because it's not your fault, it's someone else's fault, right? But
Mm.
that doesn't, again, going back to that, doesn't give you an empowering mindset to move forward, right? It just makes you feel more helpless. So maybe in the moment it makes you feel better, but in the long term it doesn't empower you. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really important one. And I think the other thing is, we talked in our last session about decision making, and I think recognizing that you have choice in so many areas of life,
Yeah.
and so the things where you don't have a choice, you don't have any power. So
Mm.
it's out of your hands. Don't waste a lot of mental energy worrying about it, which is easier said than done. But then
Mm.
recognize, what things can I decide? What choices do I have? And again, it's my slogan, but awareness allows change. So you talked
Mm.
about it yourself, being aware of when you're getting into that kind of that mentality, or that feeling sorry for yourself, or that victim mode. It's just having a level of awareness, and then also having an awareness of, okay, which choices have I made that have led me here, right?
Mm.
So just being able to acknowledge that, you've made choices that you put you in situations, and maybe some of it was out of your control, but you put yourself in certain situations, or you made certain choices, and they have led you to where you are now. And the good thing in that is, if your choices have led you here, then your choices can also lead you out of here, right? They're
Yeah.
also the solution. And when
Yeah.
you can start to look at it that way, you feel a lot more empowered to make better choices, to challenge yourself, to be more aware, to learn more things. Again, the growth mindset, and recognizing that there are no mistakes, there are just opportunities to learn. So unless
Mm.
you're doing the same things over and over again, then it's about looking at, what's the loop that I'm in? What are the things that are
Yeah.
triggering? Where are the choices that keep me in this loop? And then that's how you're going to, systemically speaking, that's how you're going to find a way out.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, speaking of choice, and I mean, I'm thinking of, I think it was Viktor Frankl who wrote a lot about the choice, and the choice that we have between stimuli and reaction, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
there is a little space there that is super powerful. And if we translate that into that on and off switch, maybe there's something there. Um, but at the same time, I mean, I think we can all recognize that it's not that easy. This is not a recipe that you just, yeah, if you just learn to do this, you're not going to have any problems, or you're going to feel good about everything, right? It's very difficult, and you might not see any immediate reactions. But I think on a personal level, and especially on an organizational level, I mean, I work with consultancies called Paradigm Mindset Matters Group. The mindsets are very important. And you're talking about this downward spiral if we're in a victim mode. At the same time, if we can, in an organizational culture, if we can cultivate a certain mindset that we see are beneficial for the business and for the efficiency and the effectiveness and happiness also of the organization, it can really have an inspiring effect, and spiral into, if you see others working in this way or thinking in one way, it's motivating and inspiring for others. And of course that translates into leadership development. And so what kind of mindsets are you working on and willing to foster within in your working environment? And that becomes kind of a very important essence of building teams and building your organizations. How are we working here? What kind of ways of working together do we have? And speaking of that, I mean, again, I think I mentioned this before, but this below and above the line mindset, we had that as a kind of a ground rule in one of the organizations that I was working with, that if anybody goes below the line, everybody has the opportunity or the responsibility to remind each other to go above the line, and that really made a great difference, actually.
Sorry, I had to take a quick pause there for a little domestic interruption. But anyway, I kind of had to cut you off there, Toby. So,
That's fine.
um,
Uh,
but
but
we'll try and
so
pick it up.
I
Mhm.
guess what I was saying, I don't know exactly where, but I guess the main point was that, yeah, this switch that we're talking about, it's not per automatic. It's very difficult to work with, even if you have the awareness that it takes a lot of effort and yeah, well, a lot of effort to really work with it, and it takes time to step into that more proactive or outcome creative kind of mindset. And also the other point was how you can utilize it in a organization or team context. That then it's important for a leader to think about what kind of mindsets that we foster with ourselves, but also with the teams of the how we're working together. And I think I was sharing one example of how in an organization that I used to work with, how we worked with that below and above the line mindset as a ground rule, which was super helpful for me and for the organization in all times, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the both on an individual and a team level, I think the sort of my background in sports also, you can, like, if you look at professional sports, you can see the the mental aspect is such an important part, right?
Mm,
If you're a professional athlete, you've got to be the top of your, on a skill level and athleticism and physical fitness. You've got to be on the top. For me, it's basketball, and whether it's, we've got the Olympics going on right now, or so at any high, or if you're playing in the European or the professional, obviously the big one everyone goes for is the NBA, and even there you see difference in the team environment. And so you have winning teams, so they talk about developing a winning culture, and that's
mm,
a lot to do with mindset. But also they're talking now about the draft prospects, so these young players that are coming out of college or out of Europe, and they're going to be entering the next level in the professional league. And a lot of what teams will look for, some, their philosophy is, well, we just want to take, we'll develop the talent, right? So they look at who's got the best skill set. But a lot of teams also take into effect, what's the mindset, what's the approach, what's the character of this person. And I think that's a really important one, because when you look at, pick any top player in their field. So in basketball, you've got your five starting five, and you've got the rest on the bench. And I
mm,
used to, when I used to coach kids, I used to say, what's the difference? Back then it was Michael Jordan, but today LeBron James or any one of these top basketball players, I would say, well, what's the difference between him and the last guy on the bench, the guy who
mm,
barely gets any playing time? Because to get it to that level, you have to have an incredible amount of skill, a lot of work put into the development of that skill. You have to be extremely fit.
mm,
There has to be a high level of athleticism. So what's the difference, right? I
mm.
mean, Michael Jordan was, obviously he was athletic, but he wasn't the tallest. He wasn't, couldn't jump. I don't know if he
Yeah.
could jump the highest, but certainly his mindset was, I can hit every shot I attempt, and
Mm,
I'm going to, he had this resilience about him. And I think
mm.
obviously he had a very competitive mindset as well. Like,
Yeah.
everything for him is super competitive. So, but it's what mindset is going to get you to your success. So, I'm not, some people are extremely competitive. They have that competitive mindset, but I don't know if that's going to lead to their greatest happiness, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
sure.
so the things that may lead you to success might not also make you happy. And I'm a big proponent of, finding fulfillment and happiness in life. But
Mm.
so I think when you talk about teams professionally, it's the same sort of thing. What do you have when people are hiring, when HR is hiring? Do you have the people with the right mindset? You can
Mm.
have a great resume, but do they have the right mindset? And that's all about, do they fit into our culture? Do they have the same values? And that,
Mm.
but mindset is also another component of that equation. So I take those kind of experiences from sports, and you can incorporate those into the business world, but also for individuals.
Mm.
I think athletes, they face a lot of adversity. You have this thing called, in the college basketball or in any college sport, it's called sophomore syndrome. So the first year that they are the first year they're in college, it's such a huge leap from high school in North America.
Mm.
And so there's such a huge learning curve, so that when they get to the second year, their sophomore year, that learning slows down a bit. And so for some, it almost feels like they're moving backwards. They're
Mm.
taking steps back because, from their perspective, they don't feel like they're progressing anymore. And so you face a lot of adversity, and you have to have a lot of resilience to get beyond that perspective. And that's why, for mindset, things like context and contrast really also play a big role. And you need to have you need to have a fairly resilient, and a mindset that creates a lot of confidence in yourself to get through those hurdles, because those
Yeah.
hurdles can really set you back to,
Mm.
I'm not into that fixed mindset. I'm not good enough. I guess I just don't have the talent, so it's using the contrast, and recognizing the context of the situation, where if you're constantly comparing yourself, like I went through a phase years ago where when I first started, the TED Talks first started coming out, and I
Mm-hmm.
started comparing myself to these guys who'd written all these books, and who'd younger than me, who'd achieved all these things in life, and I started comparing myself to them.
Mm.
And I started to feel bad about myself and what I'd achieved in life. And you know if I did it the other way around, and I looked at people who were less successful, I could make myself feel better. But I like to push myself, so I'm often comparing myself to people who've achieved a lot more in less time.
Mm-hmm.
But that has its pitfalls, and so you can easily fall into the mindset of, well, the fixed mindset of, well, maybe I'm just not good enough, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that relates to a lot that what we started with. I mean, we're talking about objectives and purpose, So that's maybe off topic a little bit, but I just found that's interesting, So what's genuinely important to me? Why is this important to me? What do I want to work on? But that translates into mindset of, yeah, so how much or what kind of mindset is going to serve you to work for that, because it's one when we're talking about sports and the competitive mindset, and I think in most, well, in all professional sports, and I focus a lot on tennis. It's so obvious how what an amazing resilience and strong kind of mindset, and how mentally strong these professional players are. I mean, look at Djokovic. It's just unbelievable. He's unbeatable, and it's not only his game; it's in his mind as well. So, but the competitive part is one thing, but then if you've to get there, what kind of mindset do you need to train focused, have a good quality training, and work for that every single day? What kind of attitude does that bring? And I remember this was many years ago, but I had some kind of talk about I mean, being able to get hired or something. It was for younger professionals, I think. What are organizations looking for when they hire people? And I did some. It wasn't a scientific research, but I did a lot of interviews with just HR people that I know, and managers that I know. And the common theme was so obvious. Like, what people are looking for is attitude. Like, if you have a good attitude, if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to develop, and fostering that kind of mindset, then it's interesting to look at you as a candidate. While if and maybe that's more of the fixed mindset, but if you have the fixed mindset that I know everything and I have all the skills, no, it's not that important. You want to get people that are able to be further developed and have that motivation, etc. Right? So I think it's interesting also to look at that part of kind of a process of how the mindset can develop you or develop us in that process of taking us further to our objectives or our goals or our sort of perceived achievements. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That mindset, there's a strong correlation between mindset and attitude, right?
Mm.
So your mindset will really dictate a lot of your attitudes towards work, towards development, towards teamwork, working together. And so if you have this very competitive mindset, um, that can push a team forward, but it can also be detrimental if there's a lot of competition amongst the team. It can take away some of the cohesion between the people who are working together. So it's just recognizing how your mindset is affecting the your life, your work environment, the people who rely on you, and because you can, when you recognize that your mindset is affecting other people, and it's about having a level of awareness around that, right?
Mm.
And then when it comes to especially teamwork and working with other people or relationships in your private life, it's really important to recognize that you have one perspective, right? So your mindset causes you, it creates a paradigm. It causes you to see things from a particular perspective, and being able to take a step back from that and objectively look at, do I need a shift in mindset in order to resolve this
Mm.
issue? In order
Mm.
to, whether it's a personal issue, whether it's a work issue, or again, it's having that level of awareness to be able to step back, be objective about it, and going, well, I see how my mindset is getting in the way, right?
No. Yeah, exactly. I ask myself that question a lot, and I guess it's a self-coaching kind of questions. But what kind of mindset will serve me in this situation when I have a challenge? Because for me, I mean, I've been actively working with mindset. So for me, I have sort of a few go-to mindsets that I can think about. But I'm trying to, in that context, as you were talking about, so what is the mindset that can serve me best right now? And how can I work with that in a good way? And yeah, it's a few ones that always sort of pop up, including this being below or above the line. But also, I mean, surprisingly often, I think a mindset that everybody knows about and everybody works with is just, yeah, your comfort zone. Like, so how much am I willing to challenge my comfort zone? And yeah, it's not comfortable, but yeah, do I want to be too comfortable? And how much can I expand my comfort zone and what's happening? So, and from a coaching perspective, I think that's really interesting to look at as well. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's also to look at how sort of review your own development. So how much have you been able to grow and develop your comfort zone, and in that way sort of developing yourself as well.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people to remind themselves that mindsets are not fixed. You can choose your mindset, and recognizing
Mm.
that, well, this is just one way of looking at it. It's just one mindset, and it can have such a tremendous impact on every level. So mental, physical. So on a physical level, well, you might say, how can mindset affect you? But you just need to look at the placebo effect. And there's been,
Mm.
and this is good that we're segueing into this, because placebo is something I wanted to talk about today as well, because there's been a ton of research done. The pharmaceutical companies all need to take into effect
Hmm.
they need to consider the placebo effect, and
Mm.
so there was this research done where there were these doctors administering, people who were having I think it's thoracic surgery, and so they noticed a marked difference between people who would just have the automatic through their IV morphine and their pain reduction versus people where a doctor actually administered it. So when there was a doctor actually administering the pain reliever, it had a more significant effect than people who just kind of got it automatically through their IV. Same, same dosage, same everything, except the situation was different. And so placebo is a huge effect. And there's massive different, there are numerous different studies on how placebo can affect you. So I also, one of the things in my coaching that I encourage people is to develop a clear philosophy, right? And that's just a matter of taking a very aware approach of putting together beliefs that support you rather than those that stand in your way. And so when you look at, we're so focused on fact finding, where's the truth, and so on. And there's some areas in life where there are no clear factful answers, right? And so we have to make assumptions. And the thing is, assumptions more than anything, our lives are built on assumptions more than anything else. And so it's also looking at when in relation to the placebo effect, do the things that I believe have utility, and a lot of times our beliefs will feed into this mindset that we have, right? So they're inextricable from each other. Our beliefs often create our mindset and our way of seeing the world. And I used to be, I didn't grow up a religious person, and I actually was quite cynical about a lot of people with, devout religious beliefs. And I've completely changed that mindset now because, if the beliefs are not detrimental to yourself or anyone else, in terms of what actions they lead to, then they certainly must have some utility. So if your beliefs then support a mindset that is positive for you and not detrimental to others, then it's worth holding on to, even if there are no facts that support your beliefs or your theories, as long as they have utility. I'm a big believer in the utility of beliefs, and especially because the placebo effect they have, the way they create that mindset, and the perspective they give on life. And then going back to the point where you were talking about, it's not easy. It takes practice. I try to maintain an optimistic mindset. And that's not easy to do if you're watching the news regularly, or you're surrounded by people who are pessimistic. But and I have a little a little saying or a mantra, and everything always works out for me, right? Because it comes from this. Well, even if it's not working out right now, I know that I'll get to a point where this will all have made sense, and I'll have learned so much, and I'll have come further in my life. And so I try and remind myself that everything always works out for me, and yet I still get myself caught in this mindset of worry and what if this, what if all my clients dry up? What if I don't get any more contract? What if I make a really stupid mistake? What if I say something really dumb and I get canceled because I've had a thought error? You still have these kind of you're constantly struggling against this inner need to make sure you're not making mistakes. The inner critic in us that's trying to help us avoid, mistakes and pitfalls and things that are going to be detrimental to us. And so there is a constant sort of, I don't want to say struggle, but there is this work to be done internally on maintaining a mindset that will keep us on trajectory for where we want to go. So I don't want anyone to think it's just easy. Well, just switch your mindset, if it were easy, it wouldn't be hard for athletes or for business professionals. I mean, you look at some of the greatest leaders we have, they have cultivated a mindset that, everything from their morning routine that they have to the way they deal with people to the way they see work or business. They've cultivated those mindsets and they've practiced them over time. And so, from the outside, everything looks a lot easier, right? And when we all struggle. And I even have people who think, wow, you're always so positive, or you're always this or that. And they have this view of me that's completely different than my own, because I'm obviously a lot more critical and I see all my faults from a perspective, and maybe I exaggerate my own deficits, but just so everybody understands that creating a mindset that's going to get you where you want to go in life takes time to cultivate and develop, and it takes a level of awareness, right?
Yeah. That's interesting in terms of sort of the social context as well. I'm just thinking about the people that you surround yourself with, how these individuals or these people can support or have an influence on your mindset and what's possible. And I'm just thinking of I can't think of a specific example, but if we just think at okay, look at marathons as an example. I mean, over the past, I don't have any exact numbers here, but for the past 30 years, or say 20 years, I'm pretty sure that we can see an enormous rise in the volume of people participating in marathons. I remember very clearly when I was young, marathon was something unachievable. You couldn't do it. A normal person could not run a marathon. Now it's more like for well, I mean, everybody should run a marathon, right? So when is it possible? When does that become possible for Plumber Joe, or whatever you want to call it? But so, at what point do we see others do it? Yeah, I could do that. If I work hard enough, I could do that. And marathon is just one example. I mean, we can translate that to anything, but more and more things become possible when we see that others can do it, and that has an impact on our mindset. If we're playing a team sport, just being in a team context, if when things go bad or when things are not going on to plan, as it will always do at some points, how do we react to that? If you have certain individuals of saying that we just have to fight through it, we just have to do this, and supporting each other, we might have a chance to have that positive influence and creating a mindset of we can still do this. But you can also see clearly situations where that mindset just runs down through the whole team and it just collapses, right? I mean, so you being in Germany, but you remember you maybe remember was it Germany Brazil 7-1, right? What happened to the Brazil when they stop believing? It becomes so clear how the mindset influences the behavior or the performance on the pitch.
Absolutely, and that reminds me of a really great example. I mean, a lot of people have pointed to this one, but when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, right? So it was always, back then, people thought it was impossible. The human being can't run that fast. You'll never be able to break the 4-minute mile. As soon as he had done that, like within weeks, his record was broken. Right. Yeah. As soon as that mental barrier, so that mindset of, these are the limitations, as soon as that was broken, all of a sudden, those records were broken. And that's why we continue to see ourselves excel. As soon as one person shows that, sort of a ceiling that has been artificially put in place can be broken, all of a sudden, there's other people that follow in those footsteps. And, if you look at, it used to be going to space was something governments did. No private person could ever do that. And now, you've got Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and
Branson,
Richard Branson, all going to space, right? And so, it just shows that we're those guys, and this is where innovators and people who have a very disruptive mindset, they are the innovators. They are breaking the status quo.
Mm.
We need a certain percentage of those people in order to get us out of our comfort zone or get us out of the status quo and
Mm.
help us make progress. Not all of it is positive, you know. It has its
Yeah.
drawbacks as well.
Mm.
But certainly that mindset of this is the way things are, can't change them. That's that fixed mindset, and those
Mm.
people who are the outliers who break through that barrier help the rest of us move forward.
Yeah. I think that's really important to say. Yeah, that it might not be all positive. I mean, what are the uh, yeah, if we're not successful, what's going to be the sort of mental toll on that, or for your mental well-being, or whatever. But I think what we're talking about here, what it illustrates is that the mindset is super powerful. That if for a lot of individuals, if you put your mind into it and you have that, mindset, this is going to happen if I just work hard enough. It's a very, very, very powerful tool to help you to get there. Not the only thing, of course, but maybe one of the fundamental sort of building blocks to getting
Yeah, I mean,
there.
there's one mindset that I find living in Germany where there's this huge emphasis on education, and obviously education is important, but education takes many forms, right? Is school learning, does it always trump experience? I don't think it does. And so I know in Germany it's all about what's on a piece of paper, what
Uh,
you're certified to do, without taking any or with taking very little account of your own experience or what you can actually deliver. And then you'll have, and I've worked with people who are, well, not worked with them on a coaching level, but I've experienced people who will be their, have their PhD. They'll be Dr. So and so, and I
mm,
wonder how this person ever got into this role of running this company, because they're lacking a lot of life skills, right? So
yeah.
so if we come from a mindset that education is everything,
Mm,
and again, that's not undermining the importance of education, but our education system is set up for a certain purpose and for a certain skill set, and it's
mm,
not all encompassing, right? So
mm,
I think that's important. So, and going back to this whole thing about mindset, is a perspective and a paradigm that it creates for life. If you don't recognize that, well, you have a certain mindset and that's not the only one,
mm.
then you're going to get into trouble, or it's going to be difficult to cooperate, or you're going to get so fixed on one lens through which to see the world that you're going to overlook things.
Yeah. I mean, that's really putting it into a sort of macro level, but then it becomes also very interesting to look at, yeah, how do we view the world? And you see different philosophical perspectives and political perspectives, of course. And if you have a certain mindset of how things should work, or how the world should work, if things are not happening according to that, yeah, then you're going to have some kind of maybe inner conflict, or at least conflict with others. And of course, now when the world is so complex, it's very difficult to uh, to know how to view the world. But then, so it's very important, I think, and interesting to take different perspectives and different mindsets and try to view the world. And also thinking about what is it that we're trying to achieve. I have these kind of conversations with people around me. I'm working as a football coach now from my son's team, but the philosophy of what are we trying to achieve with kind of youth football. Do we want to produce, elite players, or get as many people as possible to be healthy? What is the natural context of creating a healthy population, et cetera, for social integration? There's so many different perspectives of looking at one thing. So just a simple thing as youth soccer or youth football can, it becomes very complex all of a sudden. What is it that we're trying to achieve? And what is the right formula?
Yeah, and actually, that's an important thing that I wanted to also get onto is the recognizing that expectations and what they, the way your mindset generates certain expectations, and and being able to see it within that context. So, in whether if it's in the workplace or in your personal life, these we'll have certain expectations for ourselves. So, like someone who's a workaholic, they measure everything on that. That's also a mindset, right? And so the expectation that you have, and then getting back to the point about the context, right? So if you're measuring yourself, like I said, I was measuring myself against these ultra successful people who are doing TED Talks. Well, I'm not going to feel great about myself. And if my mindset is that, that's the only way to measure my success, or someone who's very, very much focused on their career, and is that the sole measure of their success? Or what about the family life? What about your health? And so your mindset also can narrow and limit the way you see the world, and the recognizing where things are going wrong or where things are making you unhappy. If you're too fixed in your mindset, you're going to miss out on things and areas to evolve, whether it's in business or in your professional life or in your personal life.
Mm. Yeah, and I was just also thinking about that part of, having the mindset of, you mentioned something before that, what was your slogan again?
Awareness
Uh,
allows change, or
Awareness, yeah.
or no, or was it the everything always works out for me?
Yeah, it was that part. Yeah, that got me thinking. That things work out. And I'm also thinking a little bit things even out, like sometimes you're just unlucky. If to use again the tennis metaphor, that sometimes the ball is just out, but next time it's going to be just in. So if you just keep working on it, and if you're willing to, you have to believe that it will work out. If you keep working on it, it's going to even out. But sometimes you're unlucky, sometimes it's going to be, the ball is going to go in instead of out. So,
But that's where we get to that adversity piece and having the mindset to work through those, because some people will say, well, it's just unlucky, and then they feel like a victim of circumstance. Or some
mm,
people they'll rise to that occasion. They'll, that adversity, you just, a tough fought match, or whether it's tennis or whatever, and you just lose by, by a small margin.
mm.
And then, and there's got to be one winner, right?
Yeah,
But do you then go, well, okay, I'm gonna learn from that, or do you feel discouraged and I'm gonna give up, right? So
yeah.
that
No, but
also.
yeah, exactly. It's like that. I need to keep going, and that's what I'm trying to say, at least, that you to have the awareness of, this time it's out, but I need to keep going. I need to think about how I can develop myself, and next time, it's gonna work out. But it's not like, oh, now I'm discouraged and give up. There has to be, yeah, the mindset is always there to push us forward, to keep fighting for it, not to leave it by chance. That's not at all what I'm saying.
Yeah, and so that gets you back to, Professor Dweck's, fixed and growth mindset, because
Yeah.
if you have a growth mindset, you can go, okay, well, I'm just not there yet. I still have more to learn. Or if you have a fixed mindset, it's like, I just don't have the talent. I'm just not good enough. Those are the two different views. And the interesting thing that she points out is we can have a growth mindset in some areas of life, but not in others. So,
Mm.
maybe it's something in your personal life where you have a total growth set in or the other way around. This is as far as I'm going to go in my professional life, but I'm curious, and I'm going to learn. I have lots of hobbies, and I can grow and evolve in other areas. So, I think I think that it's important to recognize that, if you say you have a certain mindset, it may only impact one part of you may only be activating that mindset in the sport that you're doing or the work life, but can you apply that to other areas of your life? Where is it going to be beneficial for you to adapt that mindset into other areas, right?
Yeah. And then we come back to this, yeah, what mindset is going to serve me in this situation, right? So taking that proactive choice of, first of all, having the awareness, but then, yeah, looking for that switch at least.
Absolutely, and so again, I think so much in life comes back to that level of awareness, right?
Mm.
Awareness that the way that I'm seeing the world is just a mindset. The choices that I'm making are leading me here, so I'm not a victim. So there's just so many different things and areas that you, if you can recognize it's just a mindset, I can change it, I can shift it. I think that's a really important thing to recognize and to remember.
Yeah, and then act on it, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think you were
My
on
my
mute
mic
there for.
my mic cut out for a second,
Yeah.
and I've actually got my girlfriend's dog here who's clearly missing her and feels the need to vocalize that he's in a bit of a victim mindset at the moment.
All right. So
Um,
well, go and act on it.
yeah. So anyway, look, I think we've covered a lot of the. Actually, there's the one area I still wanted to talk about, and I think that so mindset. I think we've already alluded to the fact that a lot of it is about framing and context, right? So the way you
Mm,
frame a situation can make a huge difference in the way you see it, right? And it affects your mindset. But the other thing that I wanted to point towards is the mental models that we've established.
mhm,
And I think mental models is also a contributor to your mindset. So you have a certain way of seeing things. So I remember I remember one case where we were both working in China, and I was giving a workshop, and one of the concepts I was trying to explain to them was mental models,
mhm,
and so I gave the kind of typical one that I've heard given before, and so I tried to use that one, and so I said, my when I see a dog, the picture that conjures is, oh, I'm friendly and interactive and man's best friend, and
mm,
all these things, and I've got a lot of experience with dogs. I had a dog for many years, and then now I foster dogs, and so I have a very positive mindset. I have I have this mental model of the way you interact with them and what it means they're part of your family and all this stuff,
mm,
and then so I used this as an example to try and so it's a mixed group of Asian, European. There was a German guy in the group, there was a Japanese guy in the group, there was uh, there might have been an Indian woman. I can't remember, but it was a mixed group
mm,
of people, and they didn't get it. They didn't
yeah,
get the reference, right? And so thinking, well, I thought about it afterwards. Well, they don't, maybe they haven't got these well established mental models to maybe that dogs aren't as common as pets, and I
yeah,
think Asian, not to have any stereotypes, but maybe they just have a different relationship to pets or to dogs as family members. And so I had to quickly look for another way of explaining what a mental model is. And so I looked at the German guy. I go, okay, tell me what. Let's say you guys are architects. Tell me, how would you? What's a tall building to you?
mm,
And he said, well, from where I come from, 20 stories. And then the Japanese guy, well, yeah, like an 80-story building, right? And
yeah,
so, and then think about all the components to that. So if you somebody came to you and said, build me a tall building, and the one guy's got this mental model of what does that building look like, how tall should
mm,
it be, and all the parameters, and then the Japanese guy, maybe from Tokyo with the huge skyscrapers, has a totally different kind of mental model around what it means. And so if you then apply that to everywhere in life, so what mental models are you working with?
mm,
What are your mental models around relationships? Big one, right?
yeah,
The way you grew up, the kind of relationships that you experienced, the interaction that you had with other kids. Those will create mental models that you will carry on into your personal life, into your professional life. And so I think your mental models really contribute to your mindset as well.
Yeah. And yeah, the other example when you were talking about people that you see as successful, what are your mental models around success? I mean, that's a big one for me, and I guess for a lot of people. So yeah, how do you define it, and what kind of mindsets do you put in, or does it serves that mental model, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah.
But what would be a how I was just thinking about that. What's the how do you differentiate mindset and a mental model? Uh,
Well, your mental models, I think, contribute to your mindset. So you have certain ways. I think mental models are a little bit more specific,
yeah,
whereas a mindset is more your approach, right? So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
it's
Yeah.
one's your approach, one's kind of a process for how to identify things, classify things. You have how to organize your information,
Mm,
whereas your mental model is your mindset is the way you're going to approach it. But
mm.
the two the two affect each other.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess yeah, I think you put that really well, actually. And I'm just thinking of choosing your mindset can challenge your mental model in a positive way, right? So I mean, we talk about these macro perspectives of, yeah, the mental model, the society should look like this, right? But if you're using different kind of mindsets to challenge that, it might become a more diverse illustration of your mental model. So what does that mean, and what could it look like, etc. So mindsets might be a good sort of process tool to challenge, but also to define your mental models in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely. I
mm,
think, look, I go back to sort of my the systemic principles, right?
yeah.
And
Mm,
everything is related to everything else. Everything is interactive, and these these are just words that we're using to point you in the right direction. I think we try and give terminology in order to help communicate certain concepts, but
mm,
they're imprecise. Words are always going to be imprecise, but they're pointing towards one is a way of seeing the world. Actually, mental models can also be a way of seeing the world, but it's a way of classifying and categorizing. Whereas your mindset is really has such a huge effect on your motivation and your emotional state and your the way you approach life. And so
mm. Your
um,
attitude, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. So hopefully, I've chosen the right words to help people to help people put it in context.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it helped me.
Okay, good. So look, I think I've covered all the points that I was thinking of for today for the topic. Anything else that you want to add?
No, not at this point. I think we've covered a lot of ground. As with all topics, you can always go deeper or more sideways or in any direction,
For
really.
sure.
But it's such an interesting topic, so I think it was interesting to talk about. Hopefully, it's something that someone can benefit from as well. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I want to leave people with, I think it's just really important to have an awareness of your awareness, the mindset that you have, the approach that you're taking, because I think some people don't realize that, you know. That the way I'm looking at the situation is just a particular mindset, and I probably have multiple mindsets in multiple situations.
Mm.
Just like you said at the beginning, understanding which mindset's going to most benefit you in a particular situation. So again, awareness is so important, and really, if you haven't looked at the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, really highly recommend her book, Mindset, and just adopting a growth mindset in as many areas of life that you can, recognizing that the limits that you maybe see are ones that are usually artificial that you've created for yourself. So I
Mm.
think that's what I'd like to leave people with the most, that your mindset is something you can choose.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You can choose, and you can sort of, in some ways, also surround yourself with mindsets that are supporting you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
There's
something.
a lot to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you cultivate. It's something you practice, like anything you want to get good at in life.
Mm.
So yeah. So I think it's time to wrap up because I think there's
I hear someone.
some, someone who's not very happy,
Mm.
and so we won't make our listeners suffer through a howling dog. But anyway, Toby, thanks for another great conversation.
Thanks, Peter.
I want to thank everyone for joining us, for listening. Hopefully, this has been helpful for you. Again, if you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And I would point out again, if you want to contact us, Toby's available through his LinkedIn page, Tobias Demker, and then I've got my website, peterteuscher.com. We would welcome your feedback, your comments, any kind of questions, and if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to send those through. So I guess with that, we'll leave it there. Have a great rest of your week, Toby, and
Thanks.
for everyone else, stay safe and look forward to having you join us again next time. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.